Hello everyone, Freelance Teacher here again. We're going to talk about equality and we're going to actually start by talking about literature. And the reason why I'm saying this to you about a short story called Harrison Bergeron, which I think I've mentioned in the past, is because it is more appropriate now than ever before. What am I talking about specifically? Well, Kurt Vonnegut wrote Harrison Bergeron, as I've mentioned, decades ago. And it's a short story that takes place in 2081, and everyone in it is equal. And they're equal by force. They're equal because the 211th, 12th, and 13th Amendments of the United States Constitution have been passed, and now everybody has to be equal. Not we would like them to be equal, but they must be equal. So, if an intelligent person is more intelligent than somebody else, then they have to wear a little earbud, and every little bit of time they'll hear a loud noise to distract them because, well, as you know, if you're going to be distracted, you can't focus, you can't concentrate, and you won't accrue knowledge. It's just not going to happen. You're distracted all the time. So the imbeciles of the world, well, they don't need handicaps, do they? They don't need to be distracted because they're just not that bright. Now, look at what I just said. Some people aren't as intelligent as others. There are people out there who would be offended by that. Now, you know that there are some people you know that just aren't as bright. Doesn't mean that they're just stultifyingly stupid. But, some people aren't as bright as others. Just as some people aren't as good at sports as others. And we'll get back to sports because everything that our moral superiors and our overlords talk about goes out the window when you talk with sports. We'll get to that. This equality stuff is coming to the fore now, especially, which is why I recommend that everybody read Harrison Bergeron. I don't really believe in required reading or forced reading, but maybe everyone should be forced to read Harrison Bergeron simply because it predicts this future. And what you've got is ridiculous decisions like we see here in New York City about 6 weeks ago. The quote-unquote mayor of New York City, because I'm not quite sure what he is, came up with a proposal for the specialized high schools, Bronx Science, Stuyvesant, Brooklyn Tech, where I went. And the mayor said, well, we're going to go to black and Hispanic minority districts, which is practically every other district in the city other than but select few. And we are going to say the test doesn't matter there because these schools are test and they're meritocratic schools. And we're going to take the top 20% and we're going to use that and put in that as a large percentage of the population in Tech, Stuyvesant, Science, and the other 4 specialized schools. Because, guess what? The racial layout of those schools is not equal. Right? It's this weird sense, this weird idea that at heart, things should be equal. And people, in this case it's by race, will do things equally. Now that's really weird because, well, let's go back to sports. The NFL and the NBA do not have the same racial makeup on the whole as Major League Baseball, which doesn't have the same racial makeup as professional tennis. Nor does that equal golf. So how do you square that circle? When you talk about something like race, you've got people in the equity world going bananas trying to make sure that the races are equally represented. And they're supposed to be equally represented to, well, depends upon what area you're in. Some people say, well, to the United States. Well, the United States has 13% black population. The NBA isn't 13% black. It's a higher percentage of black folks in New York City. But the NBA also plays in Toronto. it also plays in San Antonio. Right? There's an NBA team in Oklahoma City, for crying out loud. So when you start talking about equality, and you start talking about our overlords wanting equality, what they really mean is, which groups can I pander to in order to get votes and in order to virtue signal and status jockey, right? So the mayor of New York City is just virtue signaling and status jockeying for wealthy professional progressives, saying, you know what, those specialized high schools, they need to have more Black and Hispanic students in them, so I'm going to force it. In the same way that the handicapper general, Diana Moon Glampers, in Harrison Bergeron, forces the population at the end of a shotgun to be equal. Harrison Bergeron in that story is gifted physically, intellectually, emotionally, artistically, and she kills him, spoiler alert, at the end. Because he's just not going with it. He's just not having it. He is going to be himself, and he's going to be wonderful. And that's the thing with sports, right? Nobody says we need more Asian people in the NBA. In the world, a lot of Asian people. In the United States, I don't know what the percentage of Asian people are, but there are very few Asian people in the NBA. Can anyone name anyone besides Jeremy Lin? I can't. I don't see it. So you hear silence about that. But the most successful high schools in the city, Brooklyn Tech, Bronx Science, Stuyvesant, High School for American Studies, all of them, McKee, Staten Island Tech. The mayor wants to mess with the formula because of equity, the equity movement. Now here's the weird part with that. Not only is it very Harrison Bergeron-esque, right? Here's a test. The whole public school system, actually, that's not even true. Every middle school child who is a resident of New York City is eligible and cannot be turned away from taking that exam. I think something like 45,000 students take it a year. Somewhere around there. They're all eligible to take it. And all of the schools are majority Asian, right? It was a big thing at Tech and Stuyvesant, right? Majority Asian. The white populations have cratered. The Black populations have gone down precipitously. Poor working class Asians are the people who will get pushed out of those schools. Why? Because the mayor wants to force the racial percentage that he sees fit. He says nothing about anywhere else. What about the firms on Wall Street? Right? This guy's a limousine liberal, right? He rubs elbows with the big shots in the city. Well, New York City, that means finance. Doesn't talk about changing the hiring practices of Goldman Sachs or JPM Chase. Right? It's this kind of virtue signaling, status jockeying, I want this kind of equity for thee, but not for me. Right? It's somebody else's problem. Somebody else, I need to ruin it'll be the same thing that went to City College. City College used to be one of the top schools in the world. Not anymore. Right? They had a test. Well-meaning academic people took the test and passed. Those who weren't so well-meaning or weren't as bright, they didn't get in. And because, well, that's not equal. Well, guess what? People aren't equal. But you can't say that. You can't say it with sports. You can't say it with gender. You see now these, there was a person, I think in Connecticut, transgendered teenager, destroyed the field in the women's 100-meter dash. I think it was in the state finals in Connecticut. That person was born a man. Whoops, did I say born a man? I meant the gender assigned at birth. That's how we're saying it now. And you see the people who are for this. They're, oh, it's so brave. Look at that person beating all of those other girls. And that poor transgendered person is so brave and has such a rough path. What? Really? All of Hollywood, all of academia, all of the mainstream press, all of the corporate press 90% of the educators won't say a word bad about that. Oh no. No bravery there. And so the weird part is you're starting to see dents in the armor with this kind of stuff. Right? A person born as a man, a male, transitioning to female, running the 100-meter dash against other people who are female, we are supposed to say nothing about this. As a matter of fact, the equity, brainwashing, weirdness, strangeness of this thing, if you even say, wait a minute, maybe we should question this, or let's have transgendered athletes in a third race, have them do something else, you instantly get branded by big shots, not regular people. You get branded a heretic, transphobic, a sicko, racist, bigot. Regular people don't do this. I'm now starting to see things are changing. Mark my words. A guy I went to high school with questioned this transgender stuff and used the race in Connecticut that I'm talking to you about now. Strong black man I went to high school with. Did anybody underneath the post in Facebook say, hey, you're a bigot, transphobic, racist weirdo? No. Because he's a popular, athletic black guy who's very smart. I went to high school with. I spoke with him the other day. No criticism. Interesting. The high school thing. A lot of black moms. People I went to high school with. One of them I texted this morning. Rabidly angry about this so-called de Blasio plan for the specialized high schools. She's got young children in the public school system. She went to tech. She doesn't want the schools changed for any reason because they're fantastic places. She said something that I agree with. Why didn't de Blasio try to fix Truman High School or Stevenson or Monroe or Boys and Girls High School? Right? They pushed Ray Mickens out of Boys and Girls High School. He was too successful. Ruffled a lot of feathers. Went in there like gangbusters and turned that place around. That guy should have been running the whole thing. By that I mean the city public school system. But no, they pushed him out. So I'm going to leave you with this. Why is it that the elite, wealthy, generally white liberal type get angry? And the higher up you go in the political power scale and the wealth scale, they get angrier at you when you question these dogmas that are not to be questioned. The transgender, formerly male in the 100-meter dash. Messing with the formula that produces thousands of amazing public school graduates a year. How come the higher you go, the louder the criticism gets of that criticism? That's very weird. It's almost as if the elites, the people at the top, have a plan for us. And anybody who messes with that plan is a heretic, is a bad person, is a racist. But I think they overplayed their hand. First of all, calling someone a racist now it's kind of funny. I don't know anybody. That's just my circle. I know it's just me. Anecdotal evidence. I don't know anybody anymore. White, black, Asian, Hispanic. Calling someone a racist is like a joke. Right? It gets laughed off. That's why they've had to dial up the rhetoric. And you're starting to see areas of the population who are pushing back. I've mentioned the Hotep movement. You see a lot of stuff on social media now that just isn't in lockstep with the plan of the elites. Right? Their Harrison Bergeron plan for us. I don't think it's going to work. Well, I know it's not going to work, but what I mean is I don't think they're going to get it to work for us. And so you should continue to push back against that. Continue to push back against these authorities telling us what to do and think. And be more like Harrison Bergeron. Give it a read and say to yourself, I'm going to be like Harrison.